Welcome to folk art painting. Practice makes better. This is a brush stroke practice sheet. I'll show you the exact strokes in a moment. Books are good. Big Book of Decorative Painting, Decorative Folk Art. Chinese brush painting is here because each culture seems to have a painting, Tole painting, folk art painting tradition. And I think I'm going to be doing roses. This is from Priscilla Hauser's Book of Decorative Painting. Remember, the other word for this kind of painting is Tole painting. We're going to start with 3 brush strokes. When you are loading your brush, a couple things to keep in mind. You want the paint to be relatively loose. This paint from Galleria is already thicker. You can see that than the paint from Gumbracker. These are our artist paints. Folk art has usually their own line of paints. I don't recommend shopping. I recommend loosen up your paint. You do want it to be pretty free flowing. Okay, so I'm just videoing me adding. So make sure you got room to play around with your paint a little to make sure that it's right consistency. Okay, so this looks sort of okay to me. I got way too much paint in the top of my brush. You don't want it right up to the furlay or whatever that's pronounced. But here we go. Okay, you want to move your arm, not your fingies. So, and that's why this is almost like Chinese brush painting, because that's very arm-based rather than finger-based. So we're going to start with just a nice comma, bring it, and then drop it down. Okay, so that was already a fail. You can see how there's too much of a tip there. So I'm going to pick up some more. Okay, sometimes it's the brush's fault. I find some brushes work with less tip than others. I'm still getting way too much tip. I am going to also struggling a little with the camera, but we'll just soldier on. All right, that's already starting to be better. Okay. Now, I would say my paint's actually a little too loose. I'm gonna add a little tiny bit more paint. And now you can see how I've got that angle down. I'm pulling it back slightly because I'm just getting too much tip. I want it to be rounder, not so flat. So now I'm gonna draw, and then you push down and then you just pull up. Control is good. Now I cheat like a demon. So often when I'm painting, if I haven't got a stroke that I really like, just work in there. We're artists. Just go in and pull. So that's not going to work if you've double loaded your brush, but these are single loads. So you're already getting the sense of it. So there's your comma, your round comma stroke. Now, fun things, you can twirl them a little, right? So now we've got a one to one side, and I'm probably going to swap out brushes because I'm still not particularly happy with this one. Now again, I'm trying to make most of the motion. Oh, see, I've got the guiding finger, and I really am trying to let my arm do the work, not just my fingers. So let's take a few minutes, make sure that you've practiced. Now, look at that tip. I'm not happy with the brush. Well, I'm not happy with the painter either, but this brush is gonna go. So we're gonna move on to our crescent anyhow, but I'm going to take this brush out of rotation. Okay, so our crescent is going to be a flat brush. Got one right ready. And here we go back to the water, because like I said, look at that. That's still too thick. Here we go. We're gonna go into the water there. It's like cooking. You know it's ready because you've failed before. So you know it's the right consistency after you failed a couple of times. And there is actually room for variance, because depending on what you paint on, you may or may not want a thicker consistency. So we're just going to work on doing a crescent now. So like a little crescent moon. So you start by getting your brush, just touching it down. Lovely. Oh, you also want a brush. Look at that. Oopsie. Sorry, guys. That's a nice, pretty tight brush. You don't want old brushes for this. I get over attached and I keep my brushes too long, and they're, you know, you want them sharp. Okay, and then pull up, bring it around, and pull it down. Now, we're gonna try that again. One of the things we didn't do is, it's good to tap off some of the paint from your brush, especially like I tend to overload my brush because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to keep pulling back and getting more paint. So I got way too much on there. I am going to just tap a little bit off, and now I'm going to try it again. Oh, and also I was sitting there hanging out on the spot while I was chatting. So I'm going to stop talking for a second. Better. All right, now you can see I don't have enough paint anymore. So touch it down. You know, I'm just painting right over my old work. And again, we are artists. Just clean in what isn't working for you. So even that second one is a bit too, I took about too much paint off. So you can increase the size of this. You can make them smaller. Obviously a smaller brush will give you slightly less crescent. Also, you can do them the other way. Do them down and then up. I actually really like working with flats. They're more predictable for me. Okay, now we're going to try an S stroke, which again, using your flat brush. I really like S strokes. You, it's almost exactly like a crescent, except it's going to go into an S. So here we go. Touch it, bring it up, bring it down, and then bring it back up again. Ooh, so pretty. S's get used a lot for things like ribbons, decorative borders, endless S's. And the math of the angling is up to you. Like either you can have them really, really sharp, you can have them really long. It's just you want to be predictable and have it go whichever way you want. You should be able to reverse that too. You see that these are all pulling down. There we go. And of course, just move the paper. You don't always have to, or whatever it is that you're painting on, you can move that too. So to me, S's are gripping. I'm going to do the next couple of strokes, so I'm going to switch out. One moment. Here we go. All right, still using our flat, we are going to twirl it into a circle using your thumb, your index finger, and your middle finger. So, and it makes sense that if you just do a circle, or you know, spin it, you're gonna have a circle. So you start. Sorry guys. And then twist it around. You see I'm twisting it around. Keep going. And then it joins at the top. And there we have a circle. Kind of fun. Bit of a sloppy start, but there you have it. Moving forward with our liner brush, you can, let's have the liner. There it is. You can do lace scrolls and curly cues, and again, you want to make sure that your paint is loose enough because you don't want it drying while you're trying to curly cue. You also want a brush that's fairly fresh so that the so you don't have a lot of stray hairs that are going to mess you up. So you know, a scroll is just a nice start like that. So moving with your arm, not with your fingers. Scrolls are useful for many things. I'm thinking about like plants, tendrils. All right, you see that? Oopsie, no, you can't see that. My brush doesn't have enough paint on it. Going back over. Let's go back to just doing a nice, simple. There we go. People will often do a print outline first with a pencil or something, and then you can take your brush and go over it for consistency. You can also see I've got a stray hair, but I can probably either cut it off. Maybe you can't see that hair. Yes, you can. Cut it off or try to wet it down. All right, the teardrop is identical to the comma, except now you're using a scroll brush or a very, very small one, like a liner brush or a small, like a 0 round. Start, press, lift, and pull back slightly so that you don't have too much. I still have too much of a tip there. Look at that. We're going to do that again. You can also, like you're bowling, bring your brush into the stroke. So you're stroking the air before you touch the ground. I'm going to bring it down one more time. And then drop down your, and pull it back so it pulls up from the middle of the stroke, not from the bottom. That's going better. If you pull it back at the bottom of the stroke, you're going to end up with a tip, and you don't want that unless you want to do one of those little curlies at the bottom. Okay, so we're going to move into blending your strokes. Blending your strokes, side loading. Okay, much like the way it's described, you take the side of your brush and pull it through the paint. Now, we've talked about how this paint's really thick. I can already see that's way too thick. I'm going to work a little of the paint off on my palette here, and you can see already how you're getting that beautiful graduated stroke. It's still really thick on the edge. I'm not going to worry about that. Sometimes it's a taste thing too. I don't mind having thick paint on my works sometimes. So here I am doing a side-loaded brush. You can see how it's got that nice graduated color. If you want to side load, I'm just going to pull it back too to get some of the color off. You can float water on the open side of the brush too. Oopsie. So I've just taken my brush and dipped that side in some water. Again, I'm touching it off a bit. It's really starting to loosen. And you might be able to see it. I still have way too much paint on the side of that brush, but I'm going to go with it. No, I'm not. I'm going to take it off here. Okay, so now I've topped off some of that paint. Okay. Often for the stroke, you want to move it on a piece of paper before you do it for real. Like especially if your brush is poorly loaded the way mine was. But there, it's almost dry brushing at this point in the game. Might have to go back, get some more paint. I'm cheating and pull some right off of there. Definitely need some more. Oopsie. Oh, so once you've made a complete mess like that, take the paint off your brush, clean your brush, Usually it's good to have two bowls, one with fresh water and one's to sort of clean your brush. Take more off your brush. Yeah, I'm dampening my brush a bit. Okay. Still pretty damp, so I'm just going to pull it back in. Okay, there we are. Pulled in a little there. Going to take some off there. I flipped it over, pulled in some water on the other side. Tapped it off. Now I'm actually going to just stroke it up here to, wow. Okay. I'm happier with that. And here I am on my paper now. Oh, so maybe you want to do a crescent or something. Color would be at the top. Here we go. Whoop. Wow. Look at that, people. One more. Here we go. Okay. That's you side loading. So in some ways we've actually sort of double loaded because we were using water as our second item. I'm cleaning my brush. I'm going to go back in and now I'm going to double load. Oh, so that's a good thing to watch. Okay. So my brush is sort of wet. Here I am dragging it in the one side. Ugh. Probably use a little more paint there. Okay, taking some off. Dragging it in the other side. They're not equal. Doesn't really matter. So now you want to work the paint more evenly into the brush so it's not all glopped up like that. So I'm bringing it down to my palette tray. I'm just going to flip on both sides for a minute. There we go. That's starting to, you can see that brush looks a little bit more worked into. Now, okay, so I'm going to try that C-stroke with the double loaded brush. Up, pull, around. Now the white paint I have is specialized, so you're not getting the full-on effect that you would if I had a normal white paint. You can see how the stroke is definitely graduated 2 tones of color. I'll do one with red so that you can see it a little better. All right. You can also double load with round brush. Doesn't have to be a flat brush. You've got perhaps, it's a little easier I think with a flat. Okay, so here we are. Now, my paint started to dry. So this is a good time to bring out the mister. If you want to mist your paint a little, just to, so just find a spray bottle, do a little misting to prevent you from getting cranky. Okay, now I know this was the wetter stuff, so I'm pulling a little of the wet in. Now I'm going to grab some blue. Okay, back. Here we go again. So now I'm going to, when I was a fresher painter, I kept forgetting which side the paint was on. So it's going to happen. And you're going to accidentally flip the wrong color into the wrong side. That's okay. You'll just take it off and do it again. There we are. Okay, so a bit gloppy, kind of like gloppy paint. Here we go. Up, around, down. Okay. Also, I suppose because we're working on the orange, you don't necessarily see the color to its full effect. I'm also reaching the point where I probably need to reload my brush. So I'm doing the sin of back brushing, double brushing. It goes on and on and on. So obviously that's not desirable because it's too much. You see how you can actually go back and rescue it. Do it again. Yeah, it's not so bad. It is harder, but I'm going to show you, actually no, first I'm going to show you tipping. So tipping with a round brush is really quite easy. You take one color and then you tip the top with a different color. Let's do the red on the bottom. Working into my, you want that kind of even on your brush. Some of my paint is old too, and then it doesn't loosen nicely. All right, I'm sad we don't have a good white. I'll do the blue. It's gonna work better, I know it. Okay, see how I just tipped my brush into the paint? You can see there's two colors on there now. That's a pretty big tip. I might want to knock a little of that off, because the idea is you can pull two colors together. So here we are. So remember the comma stroke that we did earlier? We're gonna do that comma stroke again, but it's gonna be all blue because I got way too much blue on there. Let's try that again. So I've knocked some of my blue off. I'm gonna dip myself in the red. Okay, so the action is that you just, almost like a football, you're just gonna kick the top of that. So I'm resting my arm now, so I can do it a little bit better. And you just whack it through. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, there's almost nothing on that brush. I think I've under parked it, but let's also try it on the white. See what we're doing a little better. Okay, here we go. All right, so you can see now that I'm actually bringing that brush out and flat. See how there was like almost nothing on the brush, and yet now, so I'm also rolling my brush and we use the other side now. So this technique is really, really handy for flowers. You can probably almost see. Okay, so now I've taken all the paint off the top, but you can see how that's going to become a flower really quickly if you take your time and you do your brush strokes with grace. Okay, let's go. I wanted to show you double loading with a round. Start with a clean brush. What you want to do is drag paint onto one side of the round, which is why it's a little harder, because it's round, right? Okay, that's clean enough. So here I am, and I actually almost flattened my brush a little. So I'm actually making my brush kind of flat. I am going to drag it in on one side, pull it back. Okay, so the same principles for the side loading with the flat brush apply. If I wanted to, I could do nothing on the other side and just have a graduated color. I'm going to do the blue though. Here we are. So I've stroked some blue onto the other side. Okay, same principle of working the paint better into the brush. So I am holding my brush now. You can see the colors there. One side is blue, one side is red, and I'm actually holding my brush down the middle. So my brush now touches the middle. Okay, so you can see how I got one half of blue, one half of red. Now, I'm going to work that paint a little bit more carefully into my brush without mixing it up too much. Okay, so now we can, perhaps we're going to be doing a tulip later. So now we can have two colors on our tulip. And now see how we've side loaded there. And we can bring one in on one side, one in on the other side. Okay, you can see that we've already almost got a tulip there. Okay, friends, see you next Sunday at 2, I hope. Text me, email me, just call. Bye.